an organization that's been around for 50 years is pretty special.
If you think about the 50 years of history that CattleFax has amassed, and it's a remarkable story. And what they've done is they've taken data and turned it into information.
CattleFax was started in the late 1960s because there was change going on in the industry. The industry was not totally comfortable that all the information and data that they were receiving in those days from the government was accurate.
At that point in time, there was in the industry the feel that the buyers, or per se the packers, had an advantage from a technology or an informational standpoint. You know, there was four that controlled 80+%. That's where that percentage has been for quite some time.
So they felt like, hey, we need to have our own information, data sharing business to where we can see some of these trends more frequently during the course of the year, and also have basically our own double check within the system.
Back in the early days of CattleFax, very heavily membership driven with producers. And that fact was the cow-calf sector, looking at calf crop, looking at numbers of that calf crop, marketings, feeding that data into the feeding sector, the feedlot sector over the years, and trying to help them understand the market cycle, the analytics of the data coming in from the cow-calf sector.
Nearly all of us that were hired as analysts were young men or young women. We were just starting our careers. We all had a pretty strong agriculture background. We were raised in pretty robust livestock and farming operations. So we knew the industry pretty well, but we didn't know the markets near as well as our customers. We would get schooled on a regular basis. They had a lot of fun with us, but I think we were able to learn under fire. We had some of the greatest mentors and greatest teachers out there in the industry. Topper Thorpe was at the lead of CattleFax for all those early years and did a wonderful job of navigating our business.
It's amazing looking back today at a lot of things that actually got started back then by Topper and others in that development process that is still being used today. That's very, very key to our business today. The information that we use, the analysis that goes into it.
After joining CattleFax as its first marketing analyst, Topper helped revolutionize the concept and practice of information sharing in the cattle industry.
It's been steadfast, and it's our goal and our responsibility is to put out the most complete, accurate analysis, information, and knowledge to cattlemen in order that they can make better marketing decisions.
When Topper became CattleFax general manager in 1972, he helped strengthen the organization and elevate its recognition in the cattle industry.
Our family's probably been members of CattleFax for over 40 years. My dad has always been a big believer in CattleFax and what they do.
I'm not sure whether my father was on the ground floor or a founding charter member, if you will, but certainly was an early adopter, an early advocate of CattleFax. He relied heavily on the information and insight that CattleFax provided. Information is key, and he recognized that and recognized the value of that.
The cattle feeding industry went through a tremendous loss cycle in the mid-70s, late 70s, in which there was very little risk management.
Over time, we spent more and more time doing research and analysis, trying to find those nuggets to where our customers had a better insight of what it all meant.
In 2002, we had the most severe drought that I have experienced, and certainly the most severe drought that we'd ever experienced on our ranch. And it was the first time that we had totally destocked the ranch. And we leaned heavily on the advice of CattleFax and our analysts there to help us make those decisions so that we managed our risk in an environment in which we were less familiar.
So whether it's BSE or a 9/11 event or the 2008 housing crash, that volatility is something that we've got to always be aware of and try to understand it and be prepared for it and manage our business to be expecting that.
In the commodity lending business, and particularly the beef side, large quantities of money are needed, And we think it's important for our producers and customers to try to minimize risk as much as they can. And we think CattleFax gives them the tools to be able to be successful in the marketplace with the volatility that we see today.
When does it look like you're going to bring those cattle in?
It's not just cattle markets anymore. We do a tremendous amount of analysis in the grain markets. We do a lot of analysis in demand. We do a lot of analysis on pork and poultry because of the impact that it has on the cattle and beef markets. Today, obviously, we're in a global marketplace. We spend a lot of time and resources understanding what's going on in the global markets for all of these proteins. People want to do business with us in different ways today than they did 20 and 30 and 40 years ago. We've had to adapt to that, and the board has always pushed us along to make sure we're making those investments so our customers can access the information they need.
Information is key. We need to have it now, so the updates that we get on our phones or in the CattleFax app is necessary today.
What CattleFax really offered us is they had great historic data, so we could go back and see that March feeders are bringing 2 over the March feeder board, or as compared to the 5-year average was 1 over. And just to try to give you a sense and place of when you do go to market your cattle, that you've got the information that's quality information on a timely basis to enable you to make an informed marketing decision.
Anytime that you're having a sale, you want to know what your calves should be bringing. And so CattleFax is instrumental in that, to where you know, as you go into negotiations with selling your cattle, what should you be getting for your cattle.
If we look back 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the vast majority of the cattle were sold in the cash market. I'm talking about fed cattle now. Today, that percentage is about 23%. And the rest of those cattle are sold in some type of a formula agreement, and because of that, you do have less folks that are engaged in the day-to-day cash market. More and more folks are engaged in risk management. More of them are more heavily hedged a higher percentage of the time, so therefore that is where, as a business model, CattleFax has tended to evolve over the last 5 to 10 years.
We're doing so much more just besides market reporting. We're looking at industry changes, structure of the industry, what's going on. Like right now we're looking at packer capacity. What does that mean for us? What are the trends? Are we growing numbers? Are we in expansion phase? If I buy cattle, you think we can make some money? On the cow-calf side, 3 years down the road, so should I be culling cows? Should I be keeping heifers? Producers are so much more sophisticated today, and they look so much more at the big picture than they used to, that it keeps our job challenging, and we have to keep on top of the data, because they want data, they want to know the trends, and they want to know what's going to happen in the market next week, next month, next year.
But I'd say the real difference maker for CattleFax over time has been the volunteer leaders that have been willing to serve on our boards. The people that have led this organization, that have carved out and defined what the long-term vision of the industry was, that's really what's made the difference in our business over time. It's really a who's who in the cattle industry over the course of the last 50 years.
Well, we are about to enter an age where the proliferation of data will make everything in the past look like small potatoes. Big data, the Internet of Things, high-powered analytics coming through every phase of our life, from social media to consumer behavior. That data is going to flow at us at absolutely warp speed, and it's going to be massive flows of information. We're going to need somebody to help us interpret it.
CattleFax is really becoming more of a filter and a disseminator of good information for producer members.
CattleFax's value in the future to us will actually go up, because I think they will help us better interpret and sort through data. The other thing I fully anticipate is that we will gain a competitive edge in terms of having access to a trend faster than our competitors because of our affiliation with this organization.
We're constantly building new tools to be able to anticipate and measure the kind of volatility we're seeing, some momentum in these markets. Obviously, money flow, outside investors in these markets have a tremendous impact. And as our markets become more and more global in nature, any changes, anybody sneezes overseas, it can have a tremendous impact in our domestic marketplace.
They make the best caramel rolls.
Yeah, working with producers for me is a highlight of my career, especially here at CattleFax. We're blessed to work with the best people in the world. I've got a great group of producers I visit with on a daily basis, and they're not only acquaintances, but they're friends. I think the world of them. You know, we want to do right by them and help them out, increase profitability all we can for them. They're just a great group of people, and they really appreciate what we do. And we appreciate all they've done for us and staying with us through 50 years. It's been a big deal.
I had the opportunity to look back at the number of people that have been customers of CattleFax, customers, clients of CattleFax for 40 plus years. That's a long time. That's a lot of changes in our business. We've had a number of people that have been customers since day one for 50 years. Again, our business wouldn't be here today if we hadn't had these loyal customers over time. And I can't thank you enough.